further my education and keep learning and, just keep trying to do better patient care and continuing education and all that. And plus I have an 8-month-old son, so I'm trying to get some life goals set.
Awesome. All right, Zach.
Yeah, my name is Zach Hudgens. I'm full-time at Pasquotank Camden EMS. I'm stationed out at Station 14 in South Mills right now. I've been in EMS for about 3 years. I came to Pasquotank from Greenville Fire and Rescue. I was a EMTB there for 2 years, and that's about it.
All right. You said you came from Greenville. You worked at EMS in Greenville. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Keely.
My name is Keely Cartwright. I've been a 911 dispatcher for Clemens County since November of 2016. Got my basic a little over a year ago. Still haven't switched over and done any work on the EMS side. I do want to go ahead and get my basic and try to get on as full-time. My advanced as full-time and switch over from 911.
All right. Awesome. Brian.
Hey, I'm Brian. I've been with Perquimans County for about 6 years now. I work part-time. I have a full-time job as well. So anything I can do to make the community a better place and me a little bit more extra money in my pocket is always lovely.
Awesome. So those are some good goals to have. All right. So we're going to cover a little bit of the expectations for this class, and we're going to go over lab shifts. And, I know some of these are going to possibly change. I know there's 4 lab shifts now. There's Dare, Currituck, Elizabeth City, and Perquimans. You do have to make sure that you attend one of those lab sites when there is one scheduled every week. So I know that there's not one scheduled this week, and I believe there's not one scheduled the 3rd week. But besides that, you need to make sure that you are attending and signing up for these labs. And the way the labs are going to work is the Friday prior to that lab week, you will have to choose your lab site. So this Friday, we're going to need everybody to log on and choose their site for the one that they are going to attend next week. And so those lab sites, for those to function, because we have to have instructors there and we need to know how many instructors we have to have there. So for us to do that, we need to know where you're going to be, and we need to have at least 3 students in these lab sites. So if something happens and we only get 2, we will have to move you to another lab site. I know we've had questions when people asking about, what happens if they can't make it to another one, or if that's the only one that they had scheduled to go to that week. We're going to work with you on that, but know that it can happen that you are uprooted from the one that you have chosen and that you'll have to go to another one. Us as instructors have to make sure that we get those lab sites covered. So we can't have one that only has 2 students in it and then the other one have 10. We just won't have enough instructors if we split it up that way. So know that those things can change. Just be aware. Your student emails, does everybody know their student email? Have access to it? Check it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure that you check those often, because those will be our forms of communication with you. We won't be using whatever email that you use on a personal basis, but that albemarle.edu email is the one that we will be accessing and sending you emails through for communication. During this class, let's try to be respectful of others. It's great that if you don't want to have your face up here, that's fine. But let's try to make sure that we are muting ourselves. Let's make sure that we're not trying to take any personal phone calls or playing video games, anything like that that can be disruptive. And then, of course, we have that open chat feature. That's really good. If you have any questions or anything while I'm speaking, feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. This is going to be an interactive online sessions. Like I said, I will be calling on you, because if I'm just sitting here talking, I'm going to lose my train of thought. I'm just going to start to rabble on, and you're just not, the information's not going to stick. I can sit here and read you 10 definitions, but that doesn't mean anything until you actually apply yourself. And so that's when we're going to get into the education part, is these online sessions are going to be geared more towards going over main points and going over any questions you have. So the expectations are for you to try to read your material and go over it prior to these online classes. That way, if there's any questions you have or anything that you need to be cleared up, we can handle that on these online sessions. These first 3 chapters are not the greatest. They are just the history of EMS. These are things that you've gone over in basic class. So it's basically a review for you. So 2 hours of me up here talking is not going to be the greatest time. And so any questions you have, let's make it interactive. Let's try to get everything, everybody involved. So also with the lab shifts, those are when your module exams will be done. So if that week is showing a module exam, when you come to your lab shifts, that's when those will be done. Your labs, of course, are going to be hands-on, so come comfortable, ready to go, ready to work. I know that you should have received an email for your new COA shirts. Make sure that if you have been a COA student in the past, that you do get these updated shirts, because they have been changed. They are a great pumpkin orange color. They want to differentiate the students from staff, so they are a very bright color. So you will need to get those new shirts. FISDAP, you will need the FISDAP skills tracker. And I know there was a couple students who had a question on the FISDAP scheduler. Cliff said that he's going to reach out to Walter and see about that, if that is a mandatory item. I believe it is, but he is going to reach out. So let's pull up our syllabus. Let me see if I am tech savvy and can do this.
Caitlin, have they released the code for the FISDAP yet?
I believe that Walter was going to put that up on the My Courses. We were discussing that last night. Last night, Walter was up here with us going over the material. So I believe that that is something that he is going to do today.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm trying to find my syllabus. Go away, Casey. My little dog's mad she can't be in my lap. All right, does everybody see that screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so this is the one that he updated and should have sent out to everybody. If you do not have this one, let me know and I can get it to you. So of course, your lead instructor is Cliff Beeman. Your field clinical instructor will be Cameron, and that's who you will deal with anything as far as ride times. You'll communicate everything through her. It's fairly simple as far as how they break everything down with classes and what's expected. So, you know, in week 1, we've got our introduction, we got our EMS, healthcare, and our wellness and personal safety. So those are, and you know, in week 1, that's all you'll be doing. It's just those 3 chapters. And then of course, in My Courses, it'll break it down to handouts, PowerPoints, and your quizzes. Your quizzes, you do have 2 attempts on those. They are random questions. So if you do a second attempt, it will be different questions. Some might be the same, but it will be a mix. I believe that they are untimed. I don't think I put a time limit on those, but I do have it set to where I can't see myself. I do have it set to where you can after that week has closed, you are able to print that quiz out. It will give you the correct answers after that week is closed. That way you can have these for study items or whatnot for your final. So feel free to print those out after it closes. Does anybody have any questions on My Courses, FISDAP? I can reach out and find answers for you. But anything that you have questions on?
Yes. When do we have to have FISDAP by? Is there a certain date?
I honestly don't know. So for the scheduler and the skills tracker, I would say that it would be prior to you being released to get your ride time. But I can shoot Cliff. Cliff is teaching a CPR instructor class, but let me shoot him a message and I'll let you know what he says. So are you talking anything FISDAP in general or?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'll shoot him a message. Let's see what he says. Anybody else
Thank you.
have any questions? You're welcome. I know we had a couple questions on navigating my courses. Some people had difficulties opening things or saying that it was locked until they answered something. So make sure that you go through the introduction part and you actually do the introduction quiz, and it's basically just a, hi, this is who I am. And then if you notice on each event, there is a little block to the right-hand side. Make sure when you finish these items, you actually check them off. And when you check those items off, it's verifying that you have completed that, and it will unlock the next item below. All right. So we are going to dive into our first chapter. And there is a lot of facts in here. There's a lot of dates. There's a lot of specific events that they would like you to know. So I am going to go over those, but please read over them because I'm just going to name them so you know what you need to learn. So in EMS, how many levels in EMS are there of certifications?
There's 4.
Okay, and what are those for?
You want the abbreviations or the whole thing?
You can do abbreviations.
You got EMR, EMT, advanced.
Okay, so EMR, EMT, AEMT, and paramedic. Yep, that's right. So everybody is basic at the basic level, the EMT level. What is the biggest jump as far as skills and medications that you can do at the AEMT level that you cannot do at the basic level?
IVs.
IVs. A lot more medications you can give. At this point,
Epi for cardiac.
okay, epi for cardiac, yep. IOs, that's one of the newer skills that AEMTs can do. That was not a prior skill that they were
ANA.
able to do. Huh,
ANA.
okay. Your book breaks down the hours and the education requirements per level. I'm not going to go over that, but it does specify that the advanced EMT has a greater depth of understanding of topics that are introduced to themselves as far as skills as IVs, IOs, intubations. Now, remember in this class, it is a National Registry class, okay? I don't know if anybody is going towards a National Registry, but remember, in some of these skills and information is kind of dual. So in the National Registry class, as an AEMT, as a national standard, you cannot intubate a patient. But for the state of North Carolina, you can. So if you notice in your book, it'll be in the back as an appendix for intubation. So that way we are still going to teach this skill. You're still going to learn it, but for class purposes and anything in the class, the answer is you don't do it. But for state purposes, when you go take your state test, you will do intubations. So I'm pretty sure when we TSOP you at the end of the class, if you say, I'm going to intubate, we're not going to fail you because it is a skill that you can do in the state of North Carolina. A lot of information in your book will actually, when you read it, will say refer to your local protocols or contact medical direction. So they still kind of go on whatever agency or state protocols that you're working by. So it's not that much of a change. All right, somebody. Everybody say hi to Walter.
Hi.
Hey, Walter.
Hi.
Hello.
We've actually had a FISDAP question, so perfect timing. When do they need FISDAP by?
So you should have your first, your tracker before your first class. So before your first lab shift, because you should be able to start entering stuff in your lab on your first day.
Okay.
You do not have to, that's the only thing that you have to have. You have to have scheduler before your first clinical shift, and then you'll not purchase the final exam until the last, till the night you're going to take your final exam.
Okay.
That help?
Yes. And Brian had a question on the FISDAP code. Was that right, Brian?
I'm gearing to add it right now.
Okay. All right. Well, cool.
I'm going to multitask.
Is there anything you want to say before we continue?
Nope, I just listen, make sure you don't have any problems, make sure everything went well this morning. That's it.
Yeah, I had a little problem trying to get Callie on
Okay.
with hearing and be able to speak, but we were able to get that handled.
Okay. All right. I'm just listening. So if you need anything, just let me know. I'm just gonna mute myself then.
Okay. All right. All right. So your book does outline general roles and responsibilities as an AEMT. That does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 specific ones. Name a couple of them and actually what they entail.
Can you repeat the question?
So the general roles and responsibilities of an AEMT, what are some of those? They're specifically in your book. Does anybody see it in there? Emergency vehicle readiness and operations, safety.
I'm looking at my notes. Bear with me. I got my kid in my lap.
You're fine. So we have things like scene leadership, patient assessment. Does anybody see that in your book?
Is it the self-motivation thing?
It is on page 8 of your book. Advanced EMT's roles and responsibilities.
Safety, maintaining certification or licensure, patient assessment and management. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Professional teamwork.
So you're going to find, and it depends on what agency you work for, that as an AEMT, you could possibly be the lead of your truck, right? So how important are leadership skills in EMS and on EMS calls? Why are they important? We'll go with Zach.
They make everything run smoother if you have somebody that's a clear leader that can kind of divvy out tasks and stuff like that to other people on a truck.
Okay, and in what situation would we find that most important? What's like a really heavy call where we would really need leadership roles?
A code for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, in a code situation. So you have things going on like airway, medication, IV, IO access, cardiac monitor, watching the patient, and then handling the family as well, that you need to make sure you have that clear leadership role. So having a clear leadership role would reduce what? Medical errors, medication errors,
Yeah, and patient treatment time.
patient treatment time. So those factors are really important, right? Ventilations, compressions, making sure that we give the right doses at the right times. All those things are definitely important. So if you have that clear leadership role, it definitely makes things, like you said, a lot smoother. So
Right.
at the AEMT level, y'all could definitely fall into that role. You'll be the one responsible for going, hey, we need those additional resources, or hey, we need this, we need fire. So, you know, those things are things that you're going to have to kind of come into and become that leadership role. All right, so patient assessment. Everybody's familiar with a patient assessment? Our treatments, how we go through, depending on if it's a medical or a trauma patient. That's not new information.
No.
No.
Okay. And how important is our roles of working with other healthcare professionals as well?
Very important. You need good communication.
Absolutely, good communication. So good communication could be even prior to seeing that person, right? How important is a radio report to the hospital?
Very important.
Very important. So what are
Very
some,
important.
yeah, what are some instances that we would see that a early notification or a clear radio report would be important? Like what kind of
Stroke.
stroke? Absolutely. Those are very important. That's information that we need to relay quickly, right?
Right. Calling in a STEMI alert too.
Yes. Yep. STEMI alerts. All right, so we went into a little bit of being a team lead as an AEMT. So it does describe in your book characteristics of a leader and what they should possess and what makes a good team leader. Can you name some of those for me and name why they're important?
Confidence in your ability.
Okay, so why is that important?
Because if you're unsure, then your entire team will be unsure of what you're saying to them.
Absolutely. You have them looking up to you. You have claimed leader. You said, I am team lead. And if you are unsure, how confident are they in your ability to lead that team? All right.
Time management.
Why is time management important in EMS?
Scene time, en route time.
Yep. Yeah, we need to make sure that we respond to those calls in a timely manner. We need to make sure our scene times, we all have like this internal clock, right? We know that that trauma patient, 10 minutes. We know that that medical patient, you know, we have 20 minutes. Depending on what our patient is, we know that internal clock is going on with that scene time. And then we have transport times. So we have to factor those into with, you know, is our patient critical? Do we need to call a helicopter? Where's our closest destination hospital that is our goal to get to? So yes, time management is a huge key factor in being a leader.
Respect.
Respect and patient advocacy and empathy, those all kind of come into play. So why are those really important factors of a team leader?
Because you want to
Or
respect the people
general.
you're working with, and then respect the patients and their family, and they may be more willing to work with you if you're respectful towards them.
Right. We do go into a lot of difficult situations where we are not only dealing with families, we're dealing with patients, we're dealing with their families as well. So when we come in, they view us as medical professionals. So, the way we present ourselves, the way we speak to them, the way we handle the situation, it means a lot to them, and that's from their viewpoint. So you have to remember, no matter what call you go to, it's always an emergency. It might not seem like an emergency to you at 2 a.m. in the morning, but if they had to call 911, to them it's an emergency. So let's make sure that we're, showing empathy, and that we are also being patient advocates for them, and that we are just making sure that we are professionals at all time. Because how many of us work 24-hour shifts and we get those 2 a.m. calls after you probably just cleared up from another one? So let's make sure that we keep all those key characteristics in play: self-motivation, appearance, confidence, our communication skills, teamwork, time management, and our patient advocacy. It does highlight social media in here. How can social media have a negative impact on the EMS profession?
If
You
you
just
post,
gotta be careful. Go ahead.
no, you got it. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you gotta be careful with what you post, because there's a lot of people that monitor stuff like that. And if you show up to a scene where you've been friends with somebody and they seen what you post on Facebook, and it can kind of ruin your reputation as far as a EMS provider. If they see you roll up on scene and they're like, oh, well, this guy, I've seen him
Right.
post this on Facebook before.
Oh, absolutely. So before they even have met you in real life, they already have this image of you in their head because you thought it was cute to post something on social media that really had nothing to do, and maybe it was a harmless thought that you just posted something, but now somebody has a different view on you than what you had intended. So just be careful of what you post. Remember that even off the clock, we represent our agencies at all time. And people like to see something and take it a different way than probably what you meant it. So yeah, social media is definitely a big hindrance on professional view. All right, so that is it for chapter 1. Does anybody have any questions, any comments, concerns? Hey, Walter. I've had 2 people not show up that I had on the list for today, so I'm not sure if they have reached out to you that if they weren't unable to get on today or were
Who
having
is that?
trouble. Riley and Derek.
Nope.
Okay.
Don't know.
All right.
I'll reach out to one. The other one, I don't. I'll ask about the other one.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, Caitlin, while we're on that topic, do we need to let you guys know what day we're going to be on the virtual class too?
I don't think so. I think those are not a big deal because we're going to be logged in from wherever we can. And if we're logged in and we don't see somebody within like the first 15 to 20 minutes, we're probably going to log off. So yeah, make sure, I don't think that if something happens, definitely reach out to us and shoot us an email saying if something has come up. But we're basically going to be up here every Monday night and Tuesday morning anyways.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Does everybody have the new book too? I did see last night we had some confusion with people trying to follow along and they still had the AAOS. So that is the book that we are using this course.
Yes, I have that one.
Okay, it is available at the COA bookstore as well.
Yeah, mine's supposed to come in the mail today.
Okay. All right. Has anybody taken any of the quizzes or anything on the My Courses yet? Everybody
Yes.
having okay navigating that?
Yeah, I did one last night.
Okay. I've try to go through the questions to make sure before inputting them in that none of them are off the wall or crazy and that they go with your book. So if you have any questions, I mean, you can always flag it and then we'll know to go back and look at the question that you have a concern about. All right, so chapter 2. This goes into more of the history and background of EMS, and this is the one that I was talking about earlier that has a lot of specific dates. It has a lot of information on how EMS got started. I will go over the main points of it, but that's just one of those chapters you're just going to have to read and review and go over yourself to kind of get those dates to stick. I always thought this was a fun fact that civilian ambulance services in the United States were developed in the 1860s, and they were actually horse-drawn carriages with hearses. I don't know if that's ever information you'll need, but I just think it's cool how far we have come. And then between 1960 and 1970, we really did little in the back of the ambulance as far as treatment. We were just more of a transport service. But then around 1971 is when the NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, came around and built a curriculum for EMS and kind of set the pathway of what and where we are now. So I know it talks a lot about the NHTSA. Make sure you read up on that. It specifies that in 1972, the show Emergency has come along, and they have said that that is like really the show that had brought awareness into EMS. It put into the public's eye that what we do is real. We just don't transport patients because they need a ride to the hospital. You know, we actually do treatment. We're not just ambulance drivers. I know that aggravates people when they hear that, and it's a misconception. And so in this chapter, you know, I think this is one of the most important things we can do with, you know, educating our public and our patients and our families. You know, when we get on scene, if there's something that we need to do in the back of the unit before transporting, taking 5 seconds and saying, hey, you know, before we transport, we're going to take a couple blood pressures, or, you know, do some vitals, or start an IV, or give some medications. That way they know that we're just not sitting there, or that something's going wrong. You know, taking the extra 5 seconds to say, hey, this is going on before we leave can actually mean a lot and change the demeanor of the call. Between the 1970s and 1980s is when the recognition of the EMT paramedic as an allied health professional. What is an allied health professional? I believe the term's in your book, but the definition might be in the back.
Hold on, I'm looking.
Okay.
I got you, Caitlin. They are healthcare providers other than nurses and physicians who provide specialized services such as physical therapy, respiratory therapy, and emergency medical services.
Okay. All right. So going off of allied health professionals, in the state of North Carolina, what are we certification or licensure at this point?
Certification.
Certification. And hopefully the goal, you know, in the future is to go towards that licensure. So what is the difference between certification and licensure?
Just because you have your cert doesn't mean you can practice.
Okay. What about the legal parts? Is anybody able to find that in your book?
What was the question?
The difference between certification and licensure, what's the legal part behind it? Nobody?
I'm looking. I'm trying to feed a baby at the same time. Give me a second.
All right. I'll wait.
Sorry.
You're fine.
It says here that a license is a state's grant of legal authority to practice a profession within a designated scope of practice. And a certification is typically a voluntary process that can be mandatory or required to practice in certain states.
Okay. So if in the state of North Carolina, we operate under a certification, whose licensure do we operate under? Whose permission do we have for our written protocols and how we operate?
Medical director.
Yep, your medical director. So your medical director is the one that is responsible for, you know, approving the protocols. They're the ones who set how we function, what medications we can give. Of course, the state has these written protocols, but our medical director is the one who approves them and gives our agency the right to actually function through those skills and through that level.
Caitlin,
Yes.
on page 25, underneath medical direction, where it
Mhm.
says a common misconception, is that true for North Carolina, or is that just talking on a national standard?
So we operate under the state of North Carolina. But for us to operate under those, because those protocols are written already, they're handed down by NCOEMS. But then like different agencies have different specifications, like Perquimans might not carry or have the same equipment as Pasquotank. So the medical director is the one who will come in and approve those changes and approve the way you operate per agency. That's
Okay.
why not every agency has the same medical director. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. It lists key people in EMS. Feel free to read up on those key people. It looks like there's 8 of them. All right, so it's going to go over the 10 components of an EMS system. Those are our provider education, our system configurations, our communication systems, medical direction. Like I said, they are the oversight. They do the protocols and the standing orders. Your offline, what's your offline standing orders? What are those typically called?
Protocols?
Standing order?
Yeah, protocols, and those should be on every unit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. per the state, there should be a book of protocols on every single transporting EMS unit. And also, I believe, it's non-transporting EMS units. And so those standing orders are called offline. They're called prospective orders. Your online are called concurrent. And then you have the continuous quality improvement, which is your retrospective. Is anybody involved in QA or familiar with the QA process with your patient care reports?
The only thing I know, y'all meet quarterly, and then you get told what we need to fix.
Yep. So it's not what you need to fix. So agencies have typically a quarterly peer review process, and typically the hospitals that you transport to are involved in this process. And so they have a topic that they go through on those peer review meetings, and they look at the reports. And it's not what you can do better or worse, or did you fail to do something. It's improvement as far as what can we do in the future. So we all know that EMS is always a revolving door as far as things changing and for the better. And, it's learned science. So the way we do that is we look at these reports. We see how these patients are improving. We see, did we see an increase in patient outcome if we did this earlier, or if we did this faster, or if we had more of this or less of that. So it's not just necessarily picking at providers or saying what you didn't do. It's learning for the future. EMS is always changing and advancing, and it has done so in the last 5 years. It's changed dramatically. So QA and your peer review process and QI processes are very important factors in keeping the agency rolling and keeping EMS going down the road too. So our communication systems, we're going to ask Keely. Keely, what's a PSAP?
Don't get me lying on the exact name, but it's basically a 911 center.
Okay. All right. So what, I'm pretty sure everybody knows what a 911 center, but can you describe what 911 communications entails?
You get the call, whether it come in emergency, non-emergency, and then you go through the steps of figuring out who to dispatch for what areas and what resources to send. And here in the past couple of years, we've had EMD, which we go through and helps get a priority and get information for the ambulance that's responding.
Okay. Does everybody's county they work for, does their 911 system utilize EMD, emergency medical dispatch?
It should be. It is mandated now, I do believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Pasquotank does.
Okay. Yes, EMD is a wonderful tool. They're able to recognize signs of agonal breathing or ineffective breathing. They're able to do stroke diagnostics. So the things that they're capable of getting information and getting things started prior to EMS arrival is pretty amazing, because, they are able to do, like I said, the stroke diagnostics, which gives us more information before we even get there of what resources we may need, aspirin diagnostics and things like that. And it's able to provide patient care more efficiently.
And also before that, we weren't able to talk someone through CPR. And now we can go ahead and get hands-on and start having them do CPR.
Right. Yeah, I've always found that tough prior to EMD. Somebody's on the phone and said, so-and-so is not breathing, and you're not able to give those orders over the phone on how to instruct them, especially if you know how to do CPR. That's got to definitely be a tough battle in your head of what to do. So yes, I definitely am very thankful for EMD and getting those things started prior till we get there. All right, so it also goes down into, now that we got the EMD process and we were talking about getting things started before we get there, it also breaks down your different types of hospitals. You have your intensive care units, your trauma centers, burn centers, cancer centers, cardiac centers, high-risk OB, emergency mental health services, pediatric specialty care, poison control centers, and stroke care centers. So out of all of those different hospitals and centers, and why are those important to know? Why is it important to know what they are, where they are and what their capabilities are.
It's really important. Oh,
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's really important for central EMS locations like Perquimans, where you actually like have to make a choice of like whether you're gonna go to say Albemarle or Vidant Chowan or whatever. You can kind of assess what your patient's got going on, and you can take them to say Albemarle, which is technically supposed to be a stroke center, or you can go the other direction for something else you got going on.
Absolutely.
If you have real bad burns, you don't really want to take them to Albemarle or Chowan. You want to go ahead and get them to UNC
And how do we do that?
by flying them.
Okay. So knowing that, the two hospitals that are typically in our area, that they're not able to handle those types of things. So yes, knowing that you need to get them out of the area as quickly as possible. Absolutely. We utilize helicopters a lot in this in this field. So stroke centers is something that Zach had said, about Albemarle Hospital. That's something kind of new to us. So I know typically if, we had done a stroke diagnostic and we saw that it was a positive stroke, usually we would go ahead and get helo and get them out so we can get those to those centers. But Albemarle Hospital and Vidant Chowan, I think they are doing the practices. I don't know if they have got their certification fully yet, but they are stroke capable hospitals. And so when we go to these patients that are having symptoms of a stroke, instead of flying them out to, let's say, Norfolk, we can now take those to Albemarle Hospital, Vidant Chowan, and you'll call in your stroke diagnostic, your stroke report, and they have a door to scan time to where they have to have them in scan. And then after the scan, they'll typically meet with the doctor through telestroke. They'll bring a screen up to the patients and they'll do a stroke screen that way as well. At that point, the scan's done and they're going to look at whether this patient is a candidate for TPA, or if they're having a hemorrhagic stroke, they'll go ahead and try to get them flown out and handle them the best way they can. So, that's something that's changed in the last year in EMS, that we actually have those capabilities in, these small towns. So it's really cool that we have that advancement in technology. Telemedicine, if you haven't ever seen it or dealt with it, it's actually cool. It's more than just somebody talking to you on a computer screen. There's more capabilities that they can have. They actually have like a stethoscope attached to it that somebody can put on the chest, and the other person on the other side can hear lung sounds and things like that. So definitely some huge improvements in technology based. Pediatric hospitals. What are some pediatric hospitals that we have locally?
King's
Greenville's
Dock.
closest.
I missed all that.
Zach said CHKD, and I know there's one in Greenville.
Okay. Yeah, pediatrics, we don't really have much around here to deal with them, so we typically have to transport them out to the best facility. And there is one in Pitt, and there is one CHKD. I believe is that Chesapeake. I'm horrible with Virginia or Norfolk.
I think CHKD is technically Norfolk.
Okay. It also hits on EMS of the future. Just read up on that. There's not really much information for me to go over with you. It just explains going over the EMS system and our patient care roles, communication roles, our department roles, and what we can to enhance those to make them better for the future of EMS. All right, so that's chapter 2. Does anybody have any questions? I know Cliff and I were talking about, like, trying to pull some stuff up on the screen and, go over, like, if we have videos or something to tie into it. We do plan on doing stuff like that, but these first few chapters are just more of review and reading. So In chapter 3, it does discuss a lot of lifting techniques. I might brush on those a little bit, but that is what your labs are next week coming up. So I'm not going to go too in depth in those, because me telling you a power grip and how to squat and lift is not going to mean much on a screen. So, you know, we can highlight those, but that's definitely something during the lab that we are going to go over in depth. So maybe just going over your key terms so they're not new information to you for the lab next week. So does anybody have a lab site that you are typically going to try to attend every week
For Clemens.
for Quimens?
Mine's going to alternate between Perquimans and probably the beach.
Okay.
Yeah, mine will probably mostly be for Clemens.
Okay.
This month with my work schedule, I'm going to have to do Perquimans, and then next month I'll try to do COA.
Okay. All right.
To touch on it again, Caitlin, the when do we not when, you said Friday. How do we sign up and tell you where we're going for the labs?
I believe Cliff had it up there. Let's see. Let me see, hold on. I thought it was up there, but I could be wrong.
I see a lab attending questionnaire. I wonder if that's going to be it. Yeah, it's going to be under the first week. It's the lab attending questionnaire.
Okay. All right, so that should be under every week too. Maybe it's got to be added. Okay, so that's what it looks like. That's just what it's asking you, what class you'll be going to. And it looks like we need to update it and add DARE to it as well. I think we have a pretty big group from that area at the beach, so that's why we've had to add the location. So yeah, definitely try to get that done by this Friday so we can make sure that we have enough instructors and that we even have a need for that site.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so chapter 3 goes a little bit more in depth. This is actually a pretty broad chapter of stuff stuffed into it. So it goes over different types of law in EMS, goes over the well-being of EMS as far as stress factors, our resistance factors, goes into scene safety, a little bit of like bloodborne pathogens as far as transmission, bloodborne or respiratory, goes into sleep and nutrition. So all the fun stuff that we know that we need to do, but in EMS we just don't get a chance to sometimes. So we're going to go over different factors and we're going to explain and discuss on them. All right, so it states that being your best at work, of course, requires a high level of personal wellness. So what in your book specifically describes what are some components of wellness?
Is being in shape one of them?
Physical, sure.
Mental health.
Mental health, absolutely. All right, so the components that it highlights are emotional, social, spiritual, occupational, intellectual, physical, and environmental. And I really like reading this sentence because if anybody's been in EMS for a while, you know it's not our typical 9-to-5 job. And it definitely takes a little bit more out of you, especially if you have a tough shift. But states EMS work creates challenges to some aspect of personal wellness. So EMS work creates challenges to some aspects of personal wellness. What does that sentence mean to you? And I'm going to have each of you answer. So Zach. All right, Callie.
Did you say Callie?
I think you muted yourself again.
Did you say me, Callie?
Yep, go ahead.
What does that mean to me? This job, it can affect you negatively and positively. I know from personal experience. And I have an issue with taking a lot of things to heart with patient care. Just from personal experience and doing it for 3 years. I mean, if you don't take it personal at the end of the day, you really shouldn't be doing this job because you
Right.
have to have a heart, you have to have empathy. That's about it.
Yeah, we see things, hear things, and, you know, put ourselves in situations where some people, you know, they say firemen are great because they run into a burning building when others run out. You know, same thing in EMS. When others can't handle it, you know, we're there to help. And people forget sometimes that we're human too. And we need to make sure that we also remember we're human and those things do affect us. We might be taking ourselves out of the situation at the time when we're helping our patients. But at the end of the day, when we lay down, you know, we kind of think about it and it hits us. So yeah, definitely remember that we're human. All right. So Keely, what does it mean to you?
I'm going to piggyback off of that, saying that it does come with the positive and the negative. I mean, it's going to affect you anyway, more or less how you choose to let it affect you. Can you make a positive experience out of a negative situation? Things
Right.
Like that.
Okay. Brian.
The positive things is when you see somebody, like saying Food Line, when you're shopping, they're like, hey, I remember you came to my house and you saved my life. That's the positive. That's the heartwarming feeling that you wanted. That's the outcome you wanted. The negative is you stressed yourself out because you got up in the middle of the night. The tone stressed you out because they can give you shell shock, your lack of sleep. So all of it comes with a cost. And the cost is normally your body and your sleep and your overall health and wellness.
Right. So how many of us work 24-hour shifts?
Well, I did a 24-hour yesterday, but from my job to yesterday, yes, with only 4 hours of sleep, that affected me. Because when I came home last night, I passed out and didn't wake up till I slept a good 12 hours nonstop.
Sounds like you need to speak to your scheduling person. So yes. So when does our body repair itself?
During sleep.
During sleep. Okay. So if we're on a 24-hour shift and you've come in at 6 a.m. and you've done your truck check off and you've done your station duties and you're like, all right, I'm going to do my homework because I'm in AMT class and I need to get this stuff done. And you spend all day studying and say it's a relaxed day and you don't happen to have calls. So at night you try to lay down and the tones start dropping and they continuously drop. I mean, has that happened before to everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All the time. Absolutely. Or
Me yesterday.
you yesterday? Yeah. Or here's this transport that needs to go to Pitt right now. Let's go. You know, things like that is, of course, we're in EMS because we love it. We love helping people. But they don't tell you when you're in class that, you know, not every call is that trauma that I saved and I was able to restart their heart. You know, there's a lot of extra calls and extra factors that play into it that they just don't ever, you know, of course, bring to light. And EMS is a very hard job. It's a very rewarding job. Like Brian said, you know, walking, you know, a day off and you are, you know, confronted by somebody that you helped. And it's very rewarding. I mean, I can't tell patients, you know, I don't think they know how much it means when they go, how can I thank you? And you're like, well, just tell the crews thank you. You know, call and say that, you know, that they did an exceptional job, or tell the nurses, because the nurses reach out to us to sometimes too, to let them know that the crews did a good job. And those calls and those messages go a very long way. Just a simple thank you, knowing that we did something, you know, to the best of our abilities. So make sure that you are getting proper rest on your days off. Make sure that you are getting proper nutrition. Make sure that you're getting sunshine. How many night shift workers do we have?
Me.
Me.
Holla.
Yeah, night shift for 8 years here. So make sure that you're getting that sunshine, because that can cause some factors. Seasonal changes. I know we were talking about this yesterday and I couldn't remember the word, but it's actually seasonal affective disorder. Does anybody know what seasonal affective disorder is? Because it's true, it's real.
Changing of the season makes you go to depression.
It does, yeah. Yep, somebody in class yesterday was from Dare County, and they said that during the winter seasons is when they see an increase in suicides, because, you know, where they're at, they typically, I guess, they have a more of an outdoor life and they're able to do some more functions. But when that colder weather sets in, I don't know if it happens to deal with because they're home more or the change in the weather. I would love to do some more research on it myself, because, I mean, it's a real thing, and you just don't think that something as a season change would cause these factors, but it does. So it's very interesting to me.
Caitlin, we had 3 yesterday in Chowan.
Are you serious? Wow. Wow.
Yes.
I know that ODs, when they're on the rise, everybody goes, a bad batch is coming around. Well, it could be a bad batch, but also, you know, in EMS, we have to be kind of detectives too sometimes. So, you know, pull those factors in as well. You know, maybe is there something else going on? I'm pretty sure like a whole group is not having a sudden, you know, seasonal affective disorder on the same street. But, you know, just make sure that we're not always putting everybody in a little box, and that we're doing, of course, our best in every situation. I do like this statement also. It states in EMS, one of the things that we, I guess, go slack on is our access to healthcare. So why in the world would people in the healthcare field who are telling patients that they need to go to the hospital and get checked out, why are we not the ones going to the hospital or have using our access to healthcare when it's there?
Because we're workaholics.
Workaholic?
Yeah, big facts.
Yeah. Yeah. How about we make the worst patients? Oh, I'll
Yep.
go to work and I'll put a 12 lead
Yep.
on, or I'll check my blood pressure. Oh, it's 190. Oh, it's just because I had that second cup of coffee this morning. Right? So we definitely make the worst patients. We're like, well, I've seen somebody.
I tell a doc a lot.
Yeah, doc in a box. Yep. Yes, absolutely. Oh, I had a good thought. I can't remember it now. Oh, yeah. How many of us in EMS work a second job?
This is my second job.
Yeah. How many of us in EMS work EMS as a second job, or any
Yeah.
other type of healthcare field? A lot
Yeah.
of people in EMS do that because, one, if they work a 24-hour shift, they're like, I've got plenty of time off in the week. I can go work a whole nother job. I can work another EMS job full time. The pay is usually decent. You actually get some downtime sometimes, so they factor those in. And it's because it's what they know. They know that they're good at it. They know their skills. So they're like, well, why not? Why wouldn't I go work another EMS job? The downfall to that is what?
Burnout.
Burnout. You don't get that time away. You don't get that time to decompress. You don't get that time to go through those stress reactions and make sure that you are ready for the next shift anywhere you go. So yeah, absolutely. You don't get that off time. That goes into the, I'm going to mess this word up, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I did good. Make sure you read over that. I know that may or may not be a question that you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then it goes into the type of stressors. What your book describes stresses as the, let me make sure I'm saying this right, eustress, which is a short-term stress, and they said that this stress can be beneficial to you. If that does not, if that eustress, that short-term stress doesn't subside, it turns into distress, which is the long-term stress, which is actually harmful and has negative effects on your body. And the reason of this is because when our body goes through the stress response, it does the general adaptation syndrome. And the three phases are, those three phases, the alarm phase, the resistance phase, and the exhaustion phase, is what makes that long-term stress so bad. So in the alarm phase is what? What's our alarm phase for stress reaction? Y'all know this one. You don't even need to look in your book for this. Everybody remember your fight or flight?
Yeah.
So during your fight,
Yes,
or
it's like your body's response.
like your, go ahead.
Like your body's initial to the stressor.
Yep. Yep. It's your body's initial response to the stressor. So during the fight or flight response is when your body releases your hormones and the epinephrine and the cortisol. So that's that first part. And then once you get into a little bit more into the alarm phase, the epinephrine is still being released. And then it's that part of that running part, that fighting, and it's not the solution. So the initial dump of that, trying to do that initial fight or flight, once it's still releasing that epinephrine into our body, it realizes that that fight part is not what we're needing. So then the body will continuously come in and still dump the cortisol into our body, try to mediate that stress reaction. That cortisol part is the part that's dangerous in the long-term part of the distress phase because it just keeps secreting. So if our body doesn't recognize that that needs to stop and it just continues, then we go into the exhaustion phase where continued stress response is needed for a period of rest of recovery. So if we never reach that exhaustion phase, if we just keep going in that stress and we don't recognize either the factors that it is or what's contributing to that stress reaction, if we don't find that core, that problem, we're not able to ever get to that exhaustion phase. So, they're chemicals, right? These are chemicals in our bodies. So sometimes there can be chemical imbalances that are contributing to this. So knowing what your triggers are, the factors, was it a call? Is it a place? Is it a scent? I mean, anything that contributes to those stress reactions, knowing what they are, is very important. So going off of stress reactions, how are some ways in EMS that we can deal with stress? Some healthy ways.
Take some time off.
Time off, vacations, heck yes, vacations. How about talking about it? What if you had a bad call? So sometimes we can talk about it. Sometimes we can, some people like to meditate. Some people like to take a vacation. Some people even just need to take themselves out of the situation for a little bit. So reading, sometimes maybe just going to church, spiritual, something, sometimes that helps people. Even going over, I've heard a couple people say that going over their protocols after a bad call, you know, because it's kind of proof that they did everything that they could. And I guess it's more like a validation thing. Even those little things can help with stress, knowing that you did the best to your abilities. And stress could be different things. It could be issues at work, your workload, your work hours. It could be conflict with coworkers. It could be difficult patients, fear of making the wrong decisions. I mean, there's this poem, and I really wish that I had it up, and maybe I'll get it in a different class, but it's a poem about 911 saying, you know, when you get that 911 call, you're it. There's no 911-2, you're it. And they talk about, you know, making difficult decisions, and that you are, no matter what, you are the one there to help them. And then it says at the end of the call, you know, you do your report and you ready your truck for the next call. That is just, it was a really good poem. I have it hanging up my office because it does bring into reality what we do, and brings in the aspect that we're humans and that we do get nervous on these calls, and sometimes we don't know it all, and that's okay. So the fear of making the right decision definitely brings into play in our patient care. Calls involving children, absolutely. Nobody likes to go on a pediatric call. Injury or death of a coworker, that is definitely something that could cause a lot of stress within ourselves and our agency. And then traumatic injuries, seeing severe and traumatic injuries. Definitely those who are new in EMS, I think that has a lot, you know, that really brings it in forefront and new to them. So of course, coping with our mental stress and identifying those stress reactions are definitely important. Physical wellness, exercise. We all get our exercise like we're supposed to? Oh.
Sure do.
You sure? Do you really?
Yeah, I get 3 nights at the base, an hour in the gym each day.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
I think we have somebody in the room. Hey, Riley, can you hear us?
Caitlin, don't take this the wrong way, but you put my baby to sleep, so thank you.
Oh, he was so cute.
I've got it. Yeah, well, I see somebody
Hey, Riley.
recording. Hi.
Hi. Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry I'm late. Thank you. Bye. Sorry, I've been having trouble trying to figure out where to go and all that other stuff.
That's all right. It's the first class, so I'm still learning myself. So we'll do a quick introduction with you, and then we'll go ahead and continue with lesson 3.
Okay.
I'm Caitlin. I'm one of the part-time instructors with Cliff Beeman, who will be your primary instructor in this classroom.
Mhm.
So any questions you have, make sure you ask away, ask me or Cliff. Your Albemarle EDU email is the primary email that we will be using, so make sure that you are checking that on a regular. And so any communication should be done through that email. My courses, make sure that you follow through week 1 and go through that and complete everything in that week 1 course. When you are done with an assignment, on the right is a checkbox. Make sure you click that, because some assignments will not open until you click those. Lab sites, there will be 4 lab sites every week. We will not have a lab site this week. We will not have a lab site the 3rd week. But besides that, we will have a lab
The 3rd
site.
week, that would be the week of Thanksgiving?
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Okay, because I gotta go to Raleigh, so that was gonna be one of my questions.
So if there's a lab site you are required to go, there are 4 lab sites for everybody's convenience. So make sure when there's a lab site that y'all go to one of those. Every Friday, we are requiring that you pick the lab site that you go to for the week coming up. The reason being is because we are requiring 3 students at least for a lab site. So if something happens and you are not able to make that, or if something happens and there's only 2 people at that lab site, you will be made to go to another lab site. We need to make sure we have enough instructors for the student load depending on where they're going. So
Yeah.
make sure you give us early notification. Let me write your name down.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question. I work at my local hospital, and I got scheduled to work next Thursday, and it's going to be a mid shift, so I have to be in by 2. So, and I see that we start the next Thursday for our first one in Manio. Will I be reprimanded if I have to leave early so I can make it to work?
So there's, in your outline in your syllabus, there is a certain amount of requirement of time that you have to be at these shifts,
Yeah.
at these labs. If you can't make it to that lab shift, try to make it to another one because
Well, I mean, I can make it to most of it. I would only need to leave like 10-15 minutes early,
okay.
just so I can come home and get changed and be able to get to work.
Okay. Well, just be conscious of the time because, you know, the time is what a requirement is.
Yeah. Well, and that's
so
why I said probably only 10 to 15 minutes because
Okay.
it lets out at 12,
make
correct?
sure you communicate with Cliff, okay?
Okay.
And also, so your labs will also encompass your exams. So if there is an exam that week, make sure that you are on time for those exams to go.
hmm
All right.
Now, is it 9 to 12 or 8 to 12?
It depends on the lab site. It's on your syllabus.
Well, and that's the thing because on my syllabus I have both times. I have a 9 to 12 and an 8 to 12 for Thursdays.
All right, Riley, we'll go over that in a little bit. Just go ahead and do an introduction for us, and then any questions at the end that you may have, we can ask, okay? So just give us a little introduction about yourself.
I'm Riley Whitley, and I work in my local hospital in the ER. I also have my CNA, and I'm just trying to get my next level to be able to help out more in the department.
Do you work EMS anywhere currently?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Because when I originally got my EMS credentials, nobody was hiring. So the hospital hired me, and I've been working there ever since.
Well, perfect. We're glad to have you here. All right, so I'm going to mute you right now so we can finish on with our lesson 3. And then any questions, if you do look at the bottom, Riley, there's a chat feature. It'll bring up a chat window to your right-hand side.
There's a what?
There's a chat feature at the bottom of your screen. I have to toggle your mouse over it. It's a chat bubble.
Oh, chat. Got it.
And then you can bring that up to the side. You can also chat up there, okay? All right.
Yes,
if you do have your book, follow along because I am for participation. If I call on you, try to answer, okay? The best
Yes, ma'am. I ordered my book. It just hasn't come in yet.
All right, no problem. All right. All right, so going on with chapter 3, let's see where we are at. Infectious diseases. That it's not going to go too far in this chapter onto bloodborne pathogens and the type of routes of transmission and, you know, like Hep B, Hep C, HIV. It's not going to go too far into those, but it does state the type of infection diseases. There's infectious, which is any infectious disease process caused by a microorganism or pathogen. And then communicable diseases, infection diseases that can be transferred between or to humans. So routes of transmission, what are the 2 routes of transmission, or 4?
Inhalation.
Bodily fluids, any blood, saliva.
Yep. So we have direct, which is exposure to a pathogen through direct contact with an infected person. So PPE, staying safe, very important. Indirect is contact with an infected object and then touching your mucous membranes or non-intact skin. That just sounds gross because when I think of that, I think of somebody touching something wet, sticky, and not yours, and then rubbing your eyes. That's the first picture that comes into my mind because it's involuntary, right? We don't think about how many times a day we touch our face or we wipe our nose or we touch our eyes. So things like that, our indirect context can be pretty nasty. People wear glasses. You ever notice after a call you get off, maybe you have a respiratory patient, your glasses are kind of dirty? That's not dust. So just remember, you know, especially our eyes, protecting those in calls with respiratory patients, you know, those droplets that get introduced into the air. So when we go into our bloodborne, those are pathogens that are transmitted in blood, semen, or other potentially infectious material. And then respiratory, which is our nebulized pathogens that are inhaled. So when you think respiratory, what is one big respiratory pathogen or transmission route, you know, patients we transport, what kind? We don't really see it that much, but we typically get tested for it every year.
TB.
Tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis. And how do we, if we have a suspected TB patient, what do we use?
The N95 mask.
Okay, and who wears that?
You and the patient.
So yeah, so typically you, the patient can wear the mask, but yeah, the N95 is definitely important if you have a suspected TB patient, and typically your agency, if they're required on the truck, you'll have to have that fit test to make sure that is a proper fit. I don't know if anybody's done the fit test where they put it on and then they spray that stuff and you have to say, can you, it's like a bitter spray.
Yeah.
You can like taste it or smell it. And I know a lot of people lie. They're like, nope, I'm good, because they don't want to spray it again. So yeah, that's the fit test. And I think it goes like small, medium, large, and extra large, depending on what size mask fits your face. Different practices that can prevent exposure is training. A lot of agencies have their safety officer, and they have the trainings where they go over bloodborne pathogens yearly. Those are important. I know they kind of seem repetitive and they go over the same things, but repetitive information makes it stick, right? Work practices as far as deconning your units. Maybe you have an SOG or a practice in place when deconning your units. Was it a bad call? Was it a known TB patient? Was it somebody transporting with bed bugs? You know, things like that. Making sure that you are properly deconning your units after these calls. And your equipment. How many times do you touch your monitors, your stair chairs, backboards, blood pressure cuffs? How many times do you actually decon those glucometers? Yeah, so make sure that you're going over those and getting those equipment that you touch. Stethoscopes, really nasty, right? Make sure you decon those things. Eye protection, every agency should have their goggles. Those are important with, of course, respiratory droplets. Intubating a patient, CPR, things like that. Make sure that you're doing your proper PPE, because PPE doesn't just mean, you know, gloves. It can be a gown, mask, goggles, anything that you would need for that specific call. Hand washing, super important. Wash your hands. Everybody knows how to wash their hands. Hot water in between the fingers, get them wrists. And of course, sleep. I think we all know why sleep is an important factor in EMS. All right. So that is it for chapter 3. Does anybody have any questions on chapter 3? Okay. All right, so go ahead. Any questions that anybody else has on any other material or expectations for this course?
So for the first class, we have to have our shirts. Do we have to have the badge too, the COA badge?
That would be a great question for Walter, which he's not here.
I can shoot him an email. It's fine.
Okay, maybe he'll hop on before we get off.
When are our shirts supposed to be in?
Have you placed your order for them yet?
Yes, I had to go see Georgia K.
Okay.
I placed mine with John Wilson yesterday.
Okay.
I just got the paper. I haven't officially gotten the paperwork except for what came in the packet for
Okay.
when I filled out to register. I haven't gotten anything other than that, but I'll try and call him and at least leave a voicemail as to what size shirts and how many I want.
Okay. So my guess would be that they're waiting on everybody to finalize their orders, and then they're going to order them and then get you your shirts. But
Hey, Caitlin, John Wilson sent the shirt order papers out in the second syllabus, or the most updated syllabus. So all that paperwork should be in there.
okay. Did you hear that, Riley?
Yes, ma'am. I'm actually looking for it. I have. Yeah. Okay. I think. Yeah, I just got it. You there?
I'm here.
Yeah, I just got. It just popped up. So I will print that off and I guess scan it back into my computer and send it to him
Okay.
today or this after. Later on this afternoon, as soon as I get some of my online classwork done.
Okay. Yeah, make sure everybody print out your syllabus and keep it with you because it's got a lot of information that you can refer back to it. Like, I mean, there's a couple pages on the field internship, and it breaks down like the cath lab, medical direction shadow, labor and delivery, pediatrics, so there's a lot of information that you might not need to know right this second because it hasn't happened yet, but knowing it and having it for when you need it is really good. Goes into like the OEMS credentialing process, eligibility, your national registry credentialing. So a lot of great information in that syllabus. It even goes into for your continuum registration.
Okay. Yeah. Now I've already been fitted for the N95, and of course, I guess being the fact that I'm working in the hospital, I've already gotten all my HIPAA information out of the way. So I guess I can just sign this and bring it in my first day of class.
What are you talking about?
It says I acknowledge that I have received HIPAA training through college. Well, I've gotten it through the hospital. Is that okay?
I believe all that information you're going to need to resubmit to Walter. That's part of your application process. It should be.
Oh, okay. I thought I had already submitted all my packet for that kind of stuff.
Walter's going to tell you to upload it to Castle Branch.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
I will try and get that as my next. I'm trying to figure out where all these things are located to get them, and so it's taken me a little while.
Yeah, everything that you should have signed and any direction where it tells you to send it to should all be in that same packet.
Okay. I'm just now. I guess the Castle course I get through this. I can go through my web advisor to get it, or because I've never heard of the Castle whatever, so I don't know exactly where to go to get that. I'm not familiar with any of this stuff.
Has anybody set up your Castle branch yet?
No, I have not, but they said they were talking about when you do go get your background check, it's only good for 6 months. So kind of push it out as far as possible before you do your clinicals, because the hospital, Vidant in particular, is going to want your background check, your drug test, and all that, but it's only good for a certain amount of time. So like 2 weeks to a month prior to you doing clinicals is when you're probably going to need to do all your Castle Branch stuff. And say, if I'm wrong, then anybody can chime in and let me know, but that's what I understood from Walter under our orientation.
Yeah, that's what I understood too.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, that's
There's a link for the Castle Branch website on the My Courses section of the COA website.
All right, I'll try and find
It
that.
should also be in the syllabus.
Yeah, Riley, I would definitely look at that syllabus and then read
Well, and I have, and that's why I'm getting all turned around, is because I'm
Yeah.
seeing different things everywhere, and it's not, and I see I need to put this, and this in the castle, but it doesn't really necessarily tell me where to go to get the castle. So that's what I was trying to figure out.
Okay.
Now, my question is, I'm already a Vidant
Riley, Walter
employee.
did our orientation. You should make a list of all your questions.
Yeah, your best bet is to definitely get up with Walter, and that way he can help you through that process.
Yes, ma'am. And like I said, I've sent him, an email last week about some of these questions that I had, and I still haven't heard back from him. He's busy, but
been all busy trying to get these classes going because he's doing the paramedic class too. So just be a little patient.
and I am, but I'm just trying to make sure I'm not late on anything. That's always been my worst fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to the syllabus, the Castle Branch link is under the third bullet under EMS field and clinical requirements. It's portal.castlebranch.com/CF52.
All right. But now I have a question. If I've already been cleared, with my background check and everything through Vidant, do I have to go through another one?
Yes.
Okay. I just wasn't sure since I'm already. Now, where do I go to get the badge?
COA.
Any
Okay, so I
COA
can.
campus.
Pardon me?
Any COA campus.
Alrighty. I will try and get there. Alrighty.
All right, so we have another person who has joined us. So Derek, introduce us to yourself, to you. Well, yeah. Who are you? Are you an EMS? What are your goals in EMS? And yeah, just a little bit about you.
Y'all hear me?
A little bit. Sounds like you're whispering.
No, I'm not whispering. I don't know what's on my computer. All right.
Okay.
I'm Derek. I work for full-time Pasco Tank EMS. Work part-time at Perquimans. Started out doing EMS about a year and a half ago. Been doing it ever since. Plan to become a medic at one point. People have told me to go from B to P, but I don't learn that way, so that's why I'm doing the A class.
All right. Do you have any questions so far in the expectations or process or anything?
Okay, this I had no idea about. I didn't know because I was confused that we had to sign on every.
Yes. So every week you have a choice of class of Monday night from 6 to 8.
Okay.
6 to 8, or Tuesday morning from 9 to 11. And so during those times, either Monday or Tuesday that you join on, we're going to go over the material. Of course, just like the other CA programs, try to go over the material prior to class, especially with these 2-hour online lectures. That way, if there's anything that we need to go over or any questions or anything to clarify, now's the time to do it.
Okay.
So today we basically just read over chapters 1, 2, and 3 and reviewed the main points that you would need to know. Your lab shifts, there is not one this week and there is not one the third week. Make sure that the Friday prior to labs that you log into your My Courses and choose the lab site that you would like to attend. That way we can make sure that we have instructors there. If something happens and there's only 2 that sign up for that lab site, we will have to make you go to another lab site because we need to have at least 3. But it looks like we have a pretty good mix of people so far that hopefully that shouldn't happen. Communication-wise, make sure that you log into your Albemarle EDU email. That's the line of communications that we will be using. And Cliff is your primary instructor, so if, definitely reach out to him if y'all have any questions. I'm available too if you need anything.
Alrighty.
Anybody have any more questions or concerns or anything? I know it's kind of, this is all new to us. And like I said, if there's any different way you learn or anything, any information that you think that you may need or anything, definitely reach out. I mean, say something. Like I said, this is all new to us, instructors included, but it's really cool.
Yeah, that's why I was confused because I'm used to just going in class. So that's why I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, well, let me get on there."
Nope, you get to be at home in your pajamas drinking your coffee.
Okay.
Trying to make sure we go ahead, Riley.
I'm sorry. Now, I'm guessing we have actual written assignments or whatever that have to be in by the end of the week, correct?
Everything is in my courses for that week 1. If you drop down that menu on week 1, hold on, I'll pull it up. Let's see.
When is the closing date? Sunday at midnight? Is that the?
Yes. Have you logged into my courses yet?
I know I did the. I can't remember.
Okay, so if you look on your screen, you'll see module 1. Oh, hold
Yes,
on.
ma'am.
We'll go back to week 1. Okay, so week 1, this is everything that is either due or required in week 1. So you'll have
Okay.
to go through your lecture slides. That's your PowerPoint. That goes through the book, and then you'll have your chapter 1 quiz and your handouts. So
Okay.
the PowerPoint and the handouts are for your information. That's the material that you'll go over while at home.
Okay.
Remember, this is a majority, it's a hybrid class, so there is a lot of reading time and education that you have to take on your own and make sure that you go over that material. Okay. And
Okay.
then we'll go over your chapter quiz. Your chapter quizzes, you do get 2 attempts. Those are random questions, so the questions, if you retake it on the second attempt, they may not be all the same that you had on your first attempt. It does take the highest grade, so whichever one you make highest on those 2 attempts. Once the week closes out, you will still have access to that quiz. It will lock it out. You won't be able to make any more attempts. But after that week closes out, it will provide you with the right answers. So that way you can print it out and have it for a study guide or whatnot for your final exams. So that information will be available to you. Then if you see at the bottom of that, it'll say the lab attending questionnaire.
Mm-hmm.
We do need to update that and add the DARE site. But, like that Friday of the week prior, make sure you go in there, so for week 2, this is where you're making your choices for whatever lab shift that you would like to attend that week.
All right. So, as of right now, I don't see the Dare County offered in there.
Right. I just said that we're going to have to update that. We
Okay.
haven't added it yet.
Yeah. Oh, I thought we were gonna have to add it. Okay. You
Nope.
all will have to add
Yep.
it. Okay.
Yep. We'll
Sorry.
update that for you. Nope.
It's I get a little
Yeah.
turned around sometimes.
Yeah, the best thing you can do is pull up that syllabus and then pull up that My Courses and just, even familiarizing yourself with the site is just, it's all right. It's all new.
Hey, Caitlin, I do have a question.
Yes.
Where we have to put the checks in the boxes,
Yes.
for Tuesday, since we're doing Tuesday, do we have to check Monday as well for it to open up, or is it just going to suffice with Tuesday?
Are you talking about as far as the online part?
Yeah, under the My Courses.
Let me see what you're looking at. I have too many windows open up. Okay, so where are you at?
Go a little bit north. See where it says Tuesday classroom? Right there you go.
You should be able just to hit the Tuesday, I would say. Hold on. Oh, no, cancel.
Mhm.
Just hit, I would say hit the Tuesday, and if it doesn't work, oh, that's just the site. So no, you should be fine on that. That just opens up the Zoom site.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all
I
it
didn't know
is.
if you had to go
It's
ahead
just
and put the check
every
in the
week.
box.
Nope, it's just every week we'll open up either that Monday Zoom class or that Tuesday Zoom class.
All right, that'll work. Appreciate
Yeah, you're welcome.
So like today, after we're done with this class, we don't need to check the box.
You shouldn't know. I say no, but if something happens and it doesn't open up, then feel free to check the box. That box doesn't show anything on our side. The boxes are mainly there if we have a restriction on something to say you have to check this box to say you've done it first. But since those are the only links, it's not recurring on different weeks, it should be fine not to check the box.
And you said Mr. Beeman is going to be the lead instructor.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, and under announcement, it should have like his email and his phone number. He just says, of course, don't contact him before 7 a.m. or don't contact him after 7 p.m. via phone. So if you have anything after hours, make sure you send him an email or something.
Yes, ma'am.
So, well, if anybody doesn't have any more questions or anything, we're going to sign off. Derek, I did record this one, so maybe I can figure out how to send it to you or even post it for you just to go back and look at it. But it was just basically reviewing chapters 1, 2, and 3. So
Okay, yeah. I read 1, 2, and 3 already. So
okay,
okay.
great. Okay, cool. All right, so if anybody has no questions, we will see you, so go ahead and do your homework. Go ahead and by Friday, log on for those lab shifts to let us know what you're going to be doing or where you'll be attending next week. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send us an email and let us know if you're stuck or if there's something that you just need help on, okay?
All right. Well, I'll be wanting to attend the DARE campus. So I can't obviously mark that yet. So what for next week?
I'll go ahead and work. We'll have it done before Friday, updated for you.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and see if I can try to, Cliff is the one that added that, so I may be able to figure out how to add it. So we'll see.
And so I just go through just stay on my syllabus or my work to choose.
Yep, my courses. Okay. Yep, absolutely.
All righty.
All right, everybody. Thank you, and we'll see you either next Monday or Tuesday, and then our first lab shifts. Remember, wear something comfortable. If you don't have your COA shirts by then, I'm pretty sure you won't. Just wear something because we'll be doing a lot of lifting and moving. And a couple of y'all weren't here when I said this. The COA shirts are changing this time, so if you have a previous one, you will need to purchase updated orange ones. So those will be fun.
So when we show up to class next Thursday, do we need to wear just a polo shirt or can we just wear a t-shirt?
I would say a t-shirt would be fine. I mean, just make sure that you still kind of look professional. Don't come in flip-flops or anything. Make sure you wear boots and pants and ready to get lifting, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Just reach out if you have any questions, okay? All right, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.